Representative Bagley, House Bill 56 by Representative Bagley authorizes administration of medical marijuana to a student by a parent, guardian, or authorized school employee at a public school. You may proceed, Mr. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's appropriate that Senator Jackson is here because I sat in front of Senator Jackson in health and welfare for 4 years. They continued to bring medical marijuana bills to the House for us to vote on. I consistently voted every time against every one of them. She's here as that witness. The testimony that some of the mothers gave, every time we met, a mom would bring a child that was having seizures, was going to die, had migraine headaches that were unbearable, all sorts of pain. They were asking to help with the medical marijuana. Again, I voted against it every time. I'd always turn to Senator Jackson and act like I was talking to her and use her napkins on her table to dry my eyes so I could turn around and talk again. I asked the chairman to take me off the committee because it was every time we met. And I have children. It was pretty heart-wrenching for me. The House of Representatives and the Senate did pass and legalize medical marijuana for that use. All I'm doing is trying students who have been subscribed medical marijuana for seizures, headaches, whatever may be, and a doctor has to do it, their doctor. Right now what happens when that's prescribed, they go home, they take the medicine, they come back to school. I'm just allowing them to do the same thing that any other medicine that's prescribed. Opioids, I was a school teacher for 34 years. They had oxycodone, any kind of drug you wanted there that was prescribed by doctors that were given. And early on in my career, we gave out aspirin. Kids would bring it in their pocket. Of course, as things went on, we realized the problem with that, and we've changed the law. But this is just to make it easier for those children that have prescriptions or recommendations for medical marijuana to use them without missing class. It's all it is. It's already legal. There are no regulations about their use except when it'll be brought to school by the parent. It'll be locked in a box. At the time that it's prescribed to take, they'll be called to office. The principal or his designee will give it to them in their presence, and they'll go back to class. A simple gesture. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Representative, how many students do we have in Louisiana's public schools that actually use medical marijuana?
I wished I had an answer, Senator, but I have no answer at all. And really, if it was your son or your daughter, and they had to have this because they had people that came with 35, 40 seizures a day, who would have seizures while we watched. If it was your child that was trying to get an education but couldn't because they continued to have seizures, the number really wouldn't make as much as just the fact that we could get them relief and help them in their educational process. That's the thing.
Yeah, and my reason for that question is because I'm wondering if it would be better served if we studied the issue first. For example, do we know that a person or a student who needs to take or uses medical marijuana for medical purposes, obviously, do we know that they would have to take it more than once a day?
Well, if you excuse me, it's prescribed by a doctor. The doctor will tell them if they need it and then how many times a day they'll take it. It's controlled. There's no middle ground here. It's the same as any other medicine. And again, we gave Percocet, oxycodone. Those were given at school every day. I told somebody that the other day and they couldn't believe it, but it's done. I was a teacher. We gave it out in the office if they were prescribed by a doctor.
Yeah, I understand what you're attempting to do. I'm the author of the drug-free school zone legislation.
Well, and this is a little bit different because a doctor will prescribe this, and I do understand, and I have always supported that.
I understand what you're attempting to do. I would feel much more comfortable if we, had, maybe Bessie to study the issue first. Yeah, because when we, you got to have the lockbox. I read that in the legislation. I mean, and then they have to sign a contract. Tell me why, and what would the contract look like?
If you check the law, it's the same as any other drug. It's the same thing. They're just adding, the doctor prescribes oxycodone for a child. He goes up there, they do all that, they put it in a box, just like that. All we're doing is adding another thing that is prescribed to allow that student, instead of going home, to take medicine, to miss school, to go continue education during the day. That's all I'm trying to do.
All right, Senator Mills for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And gosh, this bill scares me a little bit reading it, Representative. I've got a bit of an old dog problem, and these new tricks are very, very hard for me to learn. But I'm really looking forward to some testimony from the principals, supervisors, somebody from the administration in support of this. The room is darn near empty, and this looks like a big deal to me. And so I'm hesitant to like this, but I can learn. I just learn slowly. So I need some more information, whether it's today or later. I don't know, but I understand, that this is a new world, and the marijuana is, particularly for adults, has great value, and I'm just scared to death of it in schools. So just forgive me for that. Try to teach me a little more as time goes on.
No need to apologize, Senator. I was the same way. It took a while to learn that. Once it was legalized, and your doctor prescribe or recommends it for you, no one knows you better than them. The doctor that prescribes for the child, no one knows better than them what they need, and they prescribe the dosage and what time of the day, and again, they're going to take it regardless. Might not be right now, though. They have to go somewhere else to do it. I'm just trying to cut that out. There's no reason for them to miss school for something a doctor says they need. In the hearing in the House, the only people that talked were people in favor of it, and they were members of the committee. There has been no opposition. That if the schools were opposed to this, and I was a school teacher, they'd be here. I can't think of a reason why you would try to restrict a child who is in trouble the ability to get a medicine, and that's basically what would happen. I'm just trying to make it a little easier for them to do that.
Have you concluded, Senator? Senator Mizell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate what you're saying, because we had the first bills in my probably second year of my first term, and I felt as you did. It's a scary thing. I mean, not only do we have an idea what this is, but the public has a perception associated with marijuana that we had to break through in order to feel comfortable with the medical marijuana. But I think it's really important, Mr. Chairman, that we hear, I know there's some people in the room that are going to give some illustrations of what this really is and what it does that's going to make you feel better about the intent. And I'm going to tell you, as strongly as I felt about being against the idea of marijuana, after testimonies, I couldn't have lived with myself if I'd said to these children, no, you don't have a right to have this. So it's a bridge to cross, but I just wanted to let the chairman know. I think it's going to clear up a lot of questions when some of the people with real life situations clarify it. Thank you.
And Senator, I will add that I appreciate your statements. Senator Jackson said, like I said, she sat behind me. She knew I was exactly like you are. And I teared up as I listened to mothers talk about the pain they felt every time they saw their child hurting and could not help them, or with opioids, which we understand about all that. So, and that's really kind of how I took up this, is because I'm a father of 5, and I took in 2 boys when they were about 12 and raised them too. So I'm a family guy, and I do support trying to help them. I do have people here to testify. I'll move back and let them approach the
Before you
this, if
do,
that's
you
okay.
had, there's one more question
Yes,
on
sir.
the board. We have Senator Jackson. I'm sorry, Senator Mizell, have you concluded? All right, Senator
not-
Jackson, and
I'm
then
good
we'll bring up
right
the.
now. I'm good right
You
now.
good? All right, the board is clear. We have Katie Myers with, what doesn't have representative, would like to speak. If you come forward, Ms. Myers. And then we have Susan East Nelson, do not wish to speak, but is in support. And we have Katie Cochran, who's a parent, in support and wish to speak. So if you come forward as well.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Katie Mayers. It's not my first time that you've seen me here. I've been here since the beginning. I am not representing an industry today. I am representing myself because I am a patient, and I have advocated for the safety and consistency of this medicine since 2014. And the reason I'm here speaking today is because medical marijuana does work, and I'm an adult, and I can use my words to tell you that it is working. However, children, you may be able to see the miracle in them, but they can't voice that because they don't know the difference. The reason that this bill was brought together was there was multitudes of parents. Senator Fields, we don't know an exact number because of HIPAA reasons, but we do know over the past 5 years, and I did work for the only cannabis attorney for years that would take on these cases of mothers needing to relocate, mothers wanting access to be able to vocalize that without any legal repercussion. And so that's how we got a bunch of this legislation. If you do remember, Ms. Cochran was here in 2016. Ms. Hall was another family. I don't know if you're familiar with Ella Grace, the story of the little girl that was adopted in 2015, and our state did have to send her to Colorado. They broke up their family, like many other families. And she had a seizure on school grounds when she returned. And school procedure is after they seize for 5 minutes, you call the ambulance. And letting a child for 5 minutes seize will keep them out of school for 3 days because it wears their body out. Basically, I brought some of the medications that are clearly labeled. There's no smokable forms. The dosage is clearly written on the doctor and pharmacist on the labels. They're known as daytime doses for seizure kids, cancer kids, cerebral palsy kids, autistic kids. Something the size of a grain of rice can stop a seizure within seconds. Keep an autistic child from raging, keep that cancer patient able to go to the bathroom, digest his food, and have an appetite for lunch. That would be the means and necessity for having a daytime dose. And the reason why we did ask Chairman Bagley to do it is because if you look at the other states, there are 34 medical states that allow medical marijuana. 19 are currently looking at some sort of legislation that allows this. And if you look, the whole purpose of this is basically we're just taking schools in the contract and adding them to the criminal immunity from prosecution clause that was added in 2016 and 2017. Because schools are drug-free zones, Senator Fields. And that's the only way to bridge the gap between public safety crisis and a public health crisis, is to allow the students to take their daytime dose at school and exit off when they continue, when they go about their day at home. It wouldn't include extracurricular activities. Nothing would be in the hands of a student. It would only be those in the contract, and that's who would be immune from criminal prosecution, and that's the maneuver away from the drug-free zone. So that's basically the purpose, is because it is a drug-free zone that it makes it a lot harder for these kids to get the dose. And if you look at the other states that did do it, we mimicked Colorado and Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. just invoked an emergency order with this exact same legislation. Colorado, we chose Colorado. obviously because they were the only state that took pediatrics until 2018. You started to see other states to evolve that did have allowed pediatrics and their students or to get on the medication. And so this takes the burden off the school district. That's why there's one uniform policy, and the school has the option to opt out. And instead of leaving it up to the school districts like Florida and New Mexico, who fought for 2 years because their school districts didn't agree. And so this would just allow us to have one policy and give the schools the ability to opt out. And of course, if they opt out, they would just have to tell their parents that they don't have a policy in place.
All right. Board is clear. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Hi, my name is Katie Corkin, and I'm also known as Connor's mom. Connor and I had the privilege of coming up here in 2016, along with other parents and advocates, for the passage of Senator Mills's medical marijuana bill, and thankfully it passed. At the time, we were advocating for medical marijuana because Connor's seizures were wildly out of control. He had hundreds a day. He has 6 different types of seizures, and at the time he was on 7 different seizure meds, and none of them were working. The side effects were horrible, so his neurologist bluntly told us that medical marijuana was his last option, but it wasn't available here, so we advocated for it. At the time, we didn't realize that this would be an issue in school because we just hadn't gotten that far. Connor received his first dose of Louisiana program's medical marijuana oil on August 8th, 2019. He takes this oil through his feeding tube 3 times a day, and I find that most patients also take it 3 times a day. I'll give you a quick example of how life has changed over the past year. In 2015, Connor had a video EEG that was overnight, and it recorded 156 seizures, and that was in a 24-hour period. And then we just had an EEG in July, and it recorded 6. So his life has changed dramatically, to say the least. He's able to function more. He's off of 3 more of his seizure meds, so that makes he's only on 3 now. And he's just a different child. Currently, Connor receives homebound education because of his previous histories of having so many seizures and being so ill from an immune disorder. But should he go back to school, this is going to be a problem because he's not going to be able to go without his middle dose. And I am a working mother, and I can't make sure that I'm there every day during the middle of the day, which most parents are working, and they can't make it to their child's school to give them their meds or take them home to give them their meds. And it's just going to cause undue burden on parents and the children. But I think most importantly, besides, denying the kids access to an education, you're denying the right to their medication. It's unconstitutional. It violates IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also the Americans with Disabilities Act. Students' right to medication should not conflict with their right to an education. Medical marijuana treats these debilitating conditions with very little side effects, if any. And most FDA-approved medications cause horrible side effects, and my son is proof of that. I know you all worked diligently, some of you are new, but the legislature worked diligently together to pass this bill in 2016 and other bills later on. So I know that you all will work just as hard this year to make sure that these parents, they might not be up here, but they're out there so that their child can go to school. It's important, obviously. We parents are not out trying to cause, grief on schools, although sometimes it seems that way because we constantly have to fight and advocate for our kids. But we just want our kids alive and to be able to go to school. and we shouldn't have to choose between the two. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A question, Senator White.
So, 2016, it was first passed.
2015, the Allison Newstrom Act first passed, but there was a one word called prescribe in there. In 2016, Ms. Cochran came and she fixed that for us. So 2015 and 2016 were the years of monumental laws on the books.
Do you know why it was removed, prescribed?
Well, let's see. Bobby Jindal was running for president, and if I remember correctly, his biggest
that had
backer.
nothing to do with Bobby Jindal running for president.
Well, that's what-
because doctors cannot prescribe a Schedule III drug.
Well,
That's why they recommend it.
yes, I know, but it was his staff that came out and threatened the people to change the word back to prescribe to kill the language.
No, but that's why it went to
So it would be an inactive bill, basically, in 2015.
the only problem is every year. And I remember when you first came. Who do you work for now?
I work for myself now.
But who do you represent?
Other clients that aren't in the medical marijuana industry.
So you don't represent anybody in the marijuana field?
No.
Nobody. Okay. No other drugs?
Me.
No other drugs?
Am I on any other drugs?
I said, do you represent any other drugs?
No, no drug companies.
It's, the night that my second daughter was born, her sister was 1 year younger. I got a call. She was on the way to the Lady Lake Hospital with her grandmother having a seizure. She seizured for 1 hour. They didn't know if she would live. They didn't know if she had brain damage. I understand that. But every year we come back and change these marijuana laws. Every year. I know there's one coming. Every year. So when is enough enough?
To be honest, I don't think you'll ever stop seeing marijuana laws in your career, Senator White, and that's the truth. Because if we leave it alone, lawsuits can happen. You know, we've already had a child seize at school. Luckily, her parents aren't going to go try to sue. I mean, but it takes the burden off the school district. It takes the burden. I just wanted to say this real quick. I did give a copy of this policy to the Department of Education, the school boards, the Sheriff's Association, because I wanted them to look at it and realize we weren't trying to do a bad thing. Not a one of them showed up in opposition. Most of them took a stance that they didn't want to get involved because they know it needs to be done.
Well, I don't see any of them saying that. That's my only concern. You know, I travel a good bit now. I've been to Colorado, and they went down the medical marijuana. I would go to Lake Tahoe, and there's a city north of there I stayed. It's in the edge of California. And to signify that they have marijuana, they have a flag by their house. And you get up on a ridge and look down, and it looks like the stars at night of the flags. That's my concern, and I think that's the concern of probably Robert. How far do we go? Do we let everybody have, do we just open it up? That'd be the easiest thing for me, just open it up. And then I don't have to make these decisions every year and listen to these heart-wrenching stories about people's children. I mean, I had to make a decision. I didn't want to put my daughter on phenobarbital, but that's what we had to do to keep her from seizuring again, because she couldn't stand another 1 hour seizure. So,
Senator, I'd like to add, I was probably the poster child in the House for that.
I know you were.
I never for that. But then again, if you see those children come to the parents and begging us to help, the lady that just spoke, after I voted against medical marijuana that day, I went in the house and she stopped me crying. Said, "Why would you try to do that to my son?" I said, "I'm not trying to do anything to your son. I'm trying to follow the law." But when I see the boy there and the mother that's that passionate to please help me, I'm not telling them to go take marijuana. I'm telling them to go get a doctor to recommend that, and that's what it is. And we're not expanding marijuana. We're just allowing people to use it that have it, that have the right to take it. If it, and again, and you would understand that since you've been dealt with seizures, if we can have one child that doesn't have as many seizures over that, I'd be in favor of it. I raised a house full of kids. I have 13 grandkids now. I wouldn't want any of them to be deprived of something that would make their life better. I don't want opioids. My mother stands hip pain now because she will not take an opioid. I gave her some CBD oil just to rub on over the counter, and she called me and said, "Larry, that's fantastic stuff." Now, I've never used it. I don't really believe in it, but I am going to advocate here because I think there are people that need it and use it. And again, I'm not going to ever have a flag over my house. I've never done it. Even, back in the 60s when we could do it, I didn't do it then. I haven't done it. I have no desire to do it. But I do want to be sure that everybody has an opportunity to have a good life, can go to school, learn without interruption. The lady that was here, what does she do at lunch for her child? So unless the principal gives it to her or the nurse. So I did not mention this in the testimony, but I will say that the school districts can opt out. If the school district says they do not want to do this, they don't have to.
The school.
Any school district can, which gives, if there's some opposition, again, I've had no opposition. So I'm here to ask you to look at it. I don't look at this as an expansion. I'm not for legalization of recreational marijuana. I'm not going to be involved in that at all.
But that's next, Larry. That's next.
I've already been asked.
I know you have.
I'm not
I
gonna,
have too.
I'm not going to do it, and because I just don't think I have grandchildren who are little that I don't care about them going. They're going to go to the schools and get it anyway, but I don't want to go be able to buy it somewhere. And I look at that as a gateway. I know cigarettes are actually the gateway, but I don't want to continue this process. But again, I don't look at, and I wouldn't have done this had I thought it was a continuation. Again, I sat on the committee in the House floor and saw those people come through there. And as badly as I hated to vote against it, like you, I voted against it because I did not think it'd work. It's legal now. There are people that are having great success using it. The lady here, from 100 and whatever it was to 6 seizures. When they have a seizure, it takes a long time to come out of it. You don't just get over the seizure and walk on, get up and go. It's a period that you can't do anything function at all. So again, it's, the medicine behind it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not pushing that part of it. I'll let the doctors do that. If the doctor thinks you need to have it to live better, that's their business. And again, that's what this is about. If a doctor thinks you need it, just giving you the right to take it at school without having to leave school to take it. That's it.
All right.
All right, thank you, Senator. Senator Mizell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask Ms. Myers.
Yes.
When you look at the process you have in place for dispensing medical marijuana at school,
Yes.
what's the difference in the way that's done than any other prescription from a doctor for a child at school? Is any prescription kept in a lockbox?
I believe that some of the controlled substances, particularly, are kept usually in a safe or designated area. I can't speak for every school on that, but I believe it's the controlled substances. I don't know if you remember about 30 years ago when kids started being prescribed Ritalin and a lot of those stimulants, they had a similar contract in place because it was just new to them to give a child a stimulant during the day as opposed to just aspirin or Tylenol or asthma inhalers or
Antibiotics.
yes, anything like that. So they do have a way to store it already in a secure spot. If they don't, then clearly they would need a safe or something that's locked up. But that can be seen in just about every nurse's office.
Well, and then does every form of medication require the parent bring it and the parent take it back?
Yes, because it is a drug-free zone. Every morning, the parent would have to bring it and transfer it. Whoever's in that contract, the designated school employees that are allowed to handle it, they would transfer it to that employee when they arrive, and then get it back at night. So it can't be stored overnight at the school. The same for extracurricular activities, the school bus. It would always have to go through that contracted school or designated employee.
And again, this is only if the school adopts a policy.
Only if the
doesn't
school-
have to adopt a
They
policy.
don't have to adopt, and if they choose
they can
not,
put on their website that they will not have a policy.
absolutely. They haven't adopted a policy yet. That way, there will be no discrepancy upon enrolling a child there and there being a conflict later. Well, why don't you take my child? Well, we're made aware that y'all don't take, y'all don't have a current policy. So basically, it just takes the burden off of everyone involved, allowing the child to have their daytime dose.
And if you could, I know you've bagged them back up, but explain to me that who prescribes the medication?
A doctor. There are currently at least 200 doctors in the state enrolled to to write these medical marijuana recommendations.
And that's done upon an examination of the child, and I would assume looking at his previous medical history.
Oh, yes. Especially for a minor, there's extra guidelines in place that they have to be seen usually every 3 months, I believe, and followed up. And they do have supervising and treating doctors, cancer doctors, seizure doctors, neurologists.
And you mentioned something the size of a grain of rice could impact
Yes.
a seizure. So what is the dosage? I mean, is that done by milligrams, or is that
Yes.
done by
So,
drops, or?
Milliliters, milliliters.
Oh, it's
this
very
one's
clearly
milligrams,
defined
very
as to what-
clearly. Like you would give baby a Benadryl. You
Right,
get the
right,
little
right,
droppers.
right,
And
right.
look, I can go ahead and take this one out. It's a dropper that's clearly labeled. 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and
And
1.0.
then, so there's no discrepancy between?
No, none
okay,
at all.
okay.
This one either. This one you can basically rub on their gums. You don't even need a grain of rice.
But it's still very clearly the
Very
drop
clearly,
dose.
the dropper, like
Okay,
you would give a baby
okay,
Tylenol.
Okay. Thank you. I mean,
Thank you,
I know
Senator.
that. At the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move favorable.
Okay. Senator Jackson.
Thank you. As Representative Bagley mentioned, I've been a supporter of medical marijuana after hearing parent testimony year after year in education, well, in healthcare. Question, what drugs are currently excluded from being administered in school?
I actually don't know that. I know when I was in school, my daughter one time had a toothache and she had Percocet.
Right.
And we took it up there and they locked it up and nurse gave it to her once a day. I may be wrong, but I think any prescribed narcotic, which is what we do now, has to be, and even aspirin, if they have to have aspirin daily, has to go through the school nurse, and that all has to be.
But it's not
Yeah.
excluded, so basically
I don't know if
Tylenol
anything
with
is-
codeine, Percocet, our school nurses are giving those out.
If they're prescribed by a physician, they're giving them out, yes.
Okay.
And you remember, I don't know, you may remember when I was a coach, they'd come in wanting aspirin before the game or after the game, I gave them, which is certainly against the law, but at that time, it was done.
Don't put that you broke the law on the record.
Well, at the time, it wasn't against the law, it became unlawful, so,
Good deal.
that was back in the, in the 70s and 80s when people thought aspirin were, safe for everybody.
Okay. Those were my questions. So we're currently administering drugs that are on somewhat more addictive than medical marijuana.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you concluded, Senator. All right, the board is clear. I'm going to offer up an amendment, amendment number 757. Look, I do understand the parent who testified. I certainly understand her, look, my heart goes out to you. And I understand, look, but we just started this road rather in 16. And I don't know what the medical evidence is, but I do know that we have a board called the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, and that's their job to kind of look at issues like this. And if the author doesn't want me to offer the amendment, I won't, and we just vote on it. But this would turn it into a study resolution and put it where it needs to be in the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education so that they can study this issue and make recommendations. I mean, that's their job. This these two committees, this is a big step. Like it or not, I mean, this is a very big step. And I would far prefer to put this in the hands of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, give them an opportunity to study the issue, so they can bring. We haven't had one doctor to testify today, not one medical profession to testify today. I would like to offer up the amendment, turn it into a resolution, to send it to the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and let them study the issue. And that would be, I'd like to offer Amendment 757. We have discussion on the amendment. Senator Mills.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I appreciate you offering that amendment. And it gives me a substantial amount of comfort that we look at this closer. And it just bothers me that this room is this empty. And maybe it's because of the special session nature of this, and I'm new. So I would appreciate that amendment and having, Bessie look at this closely and having, a little more public comment on this before we do something that just looks, as I said earlier, just looks big to me. And I'm just not comfortable enough with it, and I appreciate this amendment. I support it.
Do we have the amendment? Jeannie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify that the amendments do not turn a bill into a resolution.
That's right.
Whether the amendments go into the statute that deals with the duties and responsibilities of Bessie and requires them to study the issue, and if they deem it advisable, then to prescribe rules and regulations governing the administration.
That is correct. It will continue to be a bill, but it will be a bill directing a study and not codifying it as a matter of law. Senator Mizell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very open-minded. I had no idea how open-minded I was, because my thinking is that when we passed the law in 2016, we said it was okay for children to take this.
That's correct, Senator.
So now we're going to say it's okay for you to take it, except between 8 and 3.
That's correct, Senator.
And that contradicts everything we voted on in 2016.
Yeah, that's
and I
correct.
think it's pretty arrogant, frankly, on our part to say to a parent, we're going to give you a remedy for your child, but we're not going to let you do it on any public time. I don't understand it. And I just had to get that out, because I want to give everybody a better feeling about doing a good thing here. I mean, we don't have people in any committee, ever. I couldn't pass an opioid bill last week because not enough doctors were in the room. We can't control that, but we've got 2 mothers here telling you their heartfelt stories about their situation. So I don't know what more we need. I don't know what more we need. We don't have lobbyists against it. We don't have any. So this is just absolutely people to people. So I will follow the chairman's lead on this, but I feel strongly that we're missing an opportunity to do the right thing and to support what we did in 2016.
Thank you, Senator.
And if I could
Mr. Chair.
add to that, Senator Mizell, thank you for that. Again, I see no reason, because it's already legal. Those children are going to take this medicine. And we can keep ladies like testified not being able to get their medicine to them, but they're going to be able to take it. Why would we, as Senator Mizell so greatly put it, why would we restrict the hours from 8 to 3 when it's legal now to do that? And if there was great opposition with doctors or the Bessie board or that, I think we'd have somebody here. I know every committee I've been on that brought things like that. We had plenty of people. We did in every committee meeting I've had this year. We had a committee room full yesterday. and that was just about transport. If there were people that were violently opposed to this, we went through the House and now the Senate, not one opposition. Senator White, I feel, I understand I'm set right in your spot on the House floor, and I voted no every time. I understand that, but then again, on the other side, when I talked to parents who cried and made me cry or tear up because they were in so much pain because their child was hurting, and then we could, and they had the cure, but they didn't have the right to do it. To me, it's, and I'm not sure the procedure here, Senator Fields, and with great respect to you, I would rather not accept your amendment.
You can have your feelings, but you can't object to the amendment in this committee.
Well, I appreciate you. I've really never been in that position, Senator. I really didn't know how that was.
You're welcome to speak your feelings on it, but you can't object.
And I know I can't ask a question. I won't do that either. So, but I did state that. I apologize.
Okay,
Senator.
I think the chairman's offered up an amendment. I'm going to get off the bike.
All right, offer Amendment 757. Any objections to the amendment? Hearing no objections, that amendment is adopted. Members, we've heard the testimony on House Bill 56. What's your pleasure? As amended. Is there a motion?
Move favorable, as amended.
All right, Senator Mizell, I'm sorry. Senator Mizell moves that House Bill 56 be reported as amended. Any objections? Hearing no objections, that bill is reported as amended.
Thank you, committee.
Members, Mr. Representative, the option would have been it wouldn't have gotten out of this committee at all.
Well, I understand that, Senator. I
but
appreciate
look,
House Bill 56 by Representative Bagley is an act to amend Title 17 relative to the administration of medication in schools to provide for the administration of medical marijuana to students with a recommendation from a licensed physician.
Senator Mizell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members.
Senator Mizell, let me interrupt you. There are a set of technical floor amendments made at the suggestion of a Legislative Bureau note. Senator Mizell moves, Senator Fields moves adoption of those amendments.
Without objections, ordered.
Thank you. Members, this bill came to Education Committee, and its intent was to allow the administration of medical marijuana to students in schools. It was amended in Senate Education to be a study that would then allow that. I want to remind the members, in 2016, we voted that it was legal to administer medical marijuana. I have a constituent who was at the meeting whose child went, and he was here every day when we were having those votes. He went from 156 seizures to 6. When we voted for that bill, we didn't say we weren't going to let you have it between 8 and 3. Again, this is a study. I ask for you to take that into consideration, and I ask for favorable passage.
Senator,
We have amendments. First set of amendments by Senator Mizell. Want this?
let's read them in.
They're
Senator,
set 896. Set 896.
Senator Mizell, on your amendments.
And this amendment, members, just gives a date on when the report and the study would be submitted to the committees on education.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment stands adopted.
Next set of amendments are by Senator Kathy.
Senator Kathy, on your amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this amendment puts a member of the House and Senate Education Committee chairman or their designee on the... I'm just kidding. It doesn't do that. Kidding. No. Look, this all this amendment does is this just says that you have to come with the findings of the study with an actual formal presentation to the House and Senate Education Committees. That's all it's doing.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the amendment? Senator Mizell, you okay with them? No objection?
Next amendments are by Senator Ward.
Without objection, that amendment is adopted.
Set number 901. But I really believe these are
Okay, return the amendment. Withdrawn. Senator Ward. You want to return it to the calendar, temporarily return it to the calendar?
Senator Mizell.
I'll return the bill to the calendar.
Okay.
House Bill 56 by Representative Bagley. It's an act to amend Title 17 relative to the administration of medication in schools. Amendment sent up by Senator Ward. They are set number 901.
Senator Ward, do you want to come present your amendments, or you want us to return it to the calendar? Okay, let's return it to the calendar and move to the next bill. We'll let them work that out.
Senator Mizell now calls House Bill 56 by Representative Bagley. It's an act to amend Title 17 relative to the administration of medication in schools. We have amendments by Senator Cathy. They are set number 913, 913.
Okay. Senator Mizell has already presented the bill, so we're going to let Senator Cathy present his amendments.
So one of the things that I really admire about our staff and stuff is the confidentiality that we have. And so as we start working on things, nobody knows what anybody's doing. And so as we're putting together amendments, sometimes things get intertwined. And so apparently we had some conflict. And so all I'm doing is proposing to delete mine because they essentially said the same thing and it caused some conflict. So I'm going to propose to delete mine because Beth says the same thing and it just makes it a little bit cleaner. So seeing no questions.
Okay, so the adoption of this amendment would be effectively deleting your other amendment.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so Senator Cathy has offered up an amendment. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, that amendment stands adopted. Senator Mizell, there any other amendments?
No, I just want to thank Senator Cathy for being so gracious. And I ask for favorable passage.
Senator Mizell moves final passage of House Bill 56 when the machines are open. All those in favor vote yea, those opposed vote nay, and the Secretary will open the machines. Vote your machines. Senator Mizell, yes. Senator Harris, yes. You through voting? Senator Talbot, yes. Senator Carter, yes. Close the machines. 34 yeas and 0 nays, and the bill is finally passed. Senator Mizell moves to reconsider the vote by which the bill passed and lay that motion on the table. Without objection, so order.
House Bill 56 by Representative Bagley, relative to administration of medication in schools, provide for administration of medical marijuana. This bill was amended in Senate Committee on Education and also has Senate floor amendments introduced by Senator Mizell and Cathy.
I do not concur.
All right, Representative Bagley moves to reject the Senate amendments. All those in favor? All those in favor of rejecting the Senate amendments vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will open the machines. Members, vote your machines. Vote your machines, members. Carpenter, yes. Lacombe, yes. Do voting members? All right, close them up. 88 yeas, 0 nays, and the amendments are not.